Welcome to All Good Points. I'm Paul North.
I'm George McBride.
Let's get straight into it because you know how I feel about hitting that 30-minute mark, George. We're very passionate about the 30-minute mark. We did a competition last week, thanks to everybody that entered by letting us know your favourite story. We have randomly determined the winner, and I have it on my phone. It would be the name that I struggle to pronounce. Agnes Drennan. Aengus Drennan. Drop us an email. paul@vaultfoss.me. We'll send you a £50 voucher. Thanks for taking part. George, do you like my new background?
Very nice.
Got all sorts going in it, mate, innit? My new digs. We say it every week. We get sick of saying it. Big news.
Always big news.
Always.
Every week.
Welcome to Always Big News. This is massive. GW Pharma, that company, might have heard of it. Moderately sized cannabis company, sold to Jazz Pharma for 7.2 billion. I thought this was a wind-up. I saw Robert Jappi tweet about this, and I thought, that's a funny name, Jazz Pharma. I thought it was part of this sort of like GameStop meme type daft story. But this is real, right? This is massive.
Yeah.
Biggest
Huge
ever.
news.
The biggest ever cannabis deal, 7.2 billion. Jazz Pharmaceuticals have agreed to acquire GW Pharmaceuticals, maker of the first drug derived from the cannabis plant. What does this mean? How significant is this, George? What does this mean for the industry?
It's a huge event. GW got their first license in 1998, I believe, and then they've been pursuing all of this research and development for all that time, and now they've sold the business and into a established, large, listed pharmaceutical business.
They don't sound very serious, Jazz Pharma, but I'm assuming they are.
It's a great name. I wish I could say I'd heard of them before, but I haven't.
It's pretty serious stuff. What message does it give just generally to the pharmaceutical industry about the legitimacy of the cannabis industry?
Yeah, it's a big bet on the future of GW and their pipeline of products. It's massive. I think we'll see more interest from the pharmaceutical sector as a result of this. This will be the first some people hear about a big cannabis business, in a lot of institutions. So it'll be interesting. Yeah,
I wonder if it'll be the start of a kind of raft of pharmaceutical buyouts. Although I think it's fair to sort of highlight GW Pharma slightly different to the majority of cannabis companies that exist globally. They had a very sort of I guess medical heavy approach, right? Like GW Pharma is a very different beast to Aurora.
Yeah. It's 23 years old and always has been operating in a fully legal environment, licensed by its, end government. So it's been a different route for them. It's taken a phenomenally long time. 23 years, if you think about it. And yet this is one of the first big deals in the industry. So it's 23 years old and it's barely just started, this industry. Jazz Pharmaceuticals, the very well-named business, also is headquartered in Ireland, and they have an office in Athlone, which is where my mother's from. I never thought, it's quite a provincial part of Ireland. Never thought it would be the centre of the cannabis industry now.
Is it one of those small little towns where everybody knows each other?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, there you go. You got a way in, George. Give Jazz a call. The Jazz guys. Your mum will know him.
Yeah.
Yeah, big news, and literally just happened like right before we started recording. Interesting to see if there's a deviation of policy change, because GW Pharma have never been particularly supportive of the reform advocacy movement. They've never been kind of like pretty engaged in the space. So I don't know whether Jazz Pharma will adopt a different approach, or it's just a case of a takeover and planning for the
future. Who knows?
Doing them differently.
Yeah, GW never really spoke of themselves as a cannabis company. They always spoke of themselves as a pharmaceutical company.
Next up, USA, fewer opioid deaths linked to prevalence legal cannabis dispensaries. We talked about this for a while. This has been always an ongoing conversation since he first saw the legalization across North America. This, is cannabis a safer alternative for the vulnerable heroin using cohort? To give a bit of detail, there is, according to a study published in the British Medical Journal, a link to legal cannabis stores and reduction in opioid-related deaths in the US. In 2018, there were more than 46,000 fentanyl-related deaths, representing over two-thirds of all US opioid-related deaths that year. According to this estimate, an increase from 1 to 2 dispensaries in a county was associated with an estimated 17% reduction in all opioid-related mortality rates. It's a pretty incredible stat. 1 or 2 dispensaries in a county reducing the death rate by 17%.
Yeah, it's a significant improvement, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
To say the least.
I was chatting to...
Go ahead.
I was chatting to Carly Barton the other day about this, did a podcast with her, and Carly was asking me, did I ever see people in treatment in the UK going from heroin to cannabis? And I didn't really see it. I saw heroin, the cocaine court jumping around loads of drugs and taking all sorts of different things, but I didn't really see it as such. But I had some really interesting conversations with people in the treatment space who've genuinely considered the cannabis-based medicines as a way of helping people stay off opiates, almost as like a post-detox low-level prescription, to just be like, look, if you're going to use a substance to help deal with whatever it is, here's a legal prescription of cannabis, rather than them just going back and using heroin. So pretty incredible potential as a substance to explore that. But I get worried about people just replacing one thing for another. I said this to Carly, that like cannabis is obviously safer than heroin. Like it's definitely safer to have people misusing cannabis than it is heroin. But you don't want to, if someone's using a substance problematically, they're still using the substance problematically. Like an addiction is still an addiction.
And a huge amount of the illicit drug use, it goes to show, is just pain management, where people aren't getting the proper access to the proper treatment to help, control and reduce their pain. So
big time.
It's a complicated picture, but a wider availability of safer drugs, also shown it's efficacious at treating pain, is a good thing. Defo.
I know this story is going to interest you without chatting to you about it in detail, but the whole GameStop saga. You've been buying. Have you been buying GME stocks?
I've still never been a stock buying person. I've considered it. I know people who do it, but I found this story really fascinating. I don't know about you.
Yeah. No, I've found it super fascinating. I bought AMC stocks.
Yeah. Are you getting involved now?
Mate, I love it. I'm always tinkering on trading 212. By the way, I'm not a fan. What you have to say something? You barrister. I'm not a financial advisor. Everything that I say is not based on anything of concrete evidence. I don't know. Don't you have to say something before you talk about it? Because someone's like, I bought.
Say you don't hold any positions in any of the stocks discussed. I hold no positions in any of the stocks discussed either. But I think it's mad, It's exciting for the people, but I think there are going to be like devastating losses for a lot of retail investors, which I think is quite sad. I'm fair play to anyone who wants to like take on the system, but my view is always you can't really beat the house. It's probably not going to end in your favour if you go trying to like take down hedge funds as your evening entertainment. But it's been super exciting, and the story of cannabis is so like that because institutional investors wouldn't get in because of the either reputational or compliance risks. A lot of the early cannabis industry, all funded by retail investors who are very hyped about the market, drove up hugely overinflated prices, ended up with a lot of hedge funds holding quite high short positions on the cannabis stocks, and then being some of the only institutions that would then lend those companies any debt. And the whole thing ended in a lot of money being made by the hedge funds and a lot of retail investors missing out. Not to say that there weren't plenty of retail investors who made a fortune in the cannabis boom. There were. but it's, you know, a hugely risky business, and it's mad when you see so much capital being driven on such emotive big waves.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, people have been bouncing around Sundial. Sundial had like a pretty random 37.3% increase from the day before. Sundial hadn't done particularly well, had they, after the whole North American crashes? Sundial came out pretty rough. I think that their share price was $0.601, but it finished the day at $1.36. So I mean, I've been watching and reading those Reddit threads, and there's 8 million people in the group now. So like, it's chaos. Honestly, like, obviously you can never keep up with it because it's just constant posts. But I've been scrolling through the past week, and you have seen some cannabis chat in there. And there has been murmurings of like, well, let's go on to the cannabis stocks, you know. So I mean, the GameStop stocks are looking pretty. I mean, they're literally just opened again, so I don't know what they're at the moment, but it was looking pretty bad. So it'd be interesting if there is a push into, right, let's get into cannabis space, and that would be pretty interesting.
Yeah,
because there's a lot of
any money left if this all goes.
Well, that's what I was saying. That's why it's interesting, because there's a lot of stocks there that are struggling. You know, like, they're all quite cheap. I mean, there aren't any expensive cannabis stocks, so. You know, people could.
Well, GW's pretty pricey at the moment, I'd say.
Jazz Pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
Jazz Pharmaceuticals. Yeah. I mean, I still don't really think of them. Well, I guess the North American cannabis companies are all pretty low. So yeah, interesting. Could be pretty lively. I think for this, it could end up just drawing a lot of attention to the cannabis space and the market. Do you know what I mean? Because obviously it's brought a lot of attention to GameStop and AMC and some of those like geeky type brands, but like, it could really bring a lot of media attention to the cannabis space.
Yeah, it could.
Interesting.
It's really interesting how, you know, retail investors are driving markets at the moment, and I'm no expert on it, but I do think the whole thing's quite fascinating, and cannabis was a big part of it over the last few years.
Yeah, go for it, Reddit guys. Do your stuff. Fight the system. But it is also like, we're not financial advisors. I don't know, don't go buy stock based off our advice. We just find it interesting. This story, like, UK self-isolation lockdown. So lockdown sparks cannabis boom as stressed and jobless Brits turn to drug. I mean, this is certainly, I mean, to me it seems fairly obvious that like lockdown is putting pressure on people's mental health, right? Like, that doesn't to me that doesn't feel like a shocking headline. I guess some people that are not in sort of the treatment-y space, like my background, maybe it would come to a surprise for them, but to me it doesn't. You know, clearly see that this has been a difficult time for a lot of people. And I mean, I guess this story refers to Release. They surveyed adult users and found 7 out of 10 transactions, drug dealing transactions, since the pandemic started have been for cannabis. Buyers admitted using the drug more. Police have seen a 28% rise in possession offences, and campaigners are worried about the drug's long-term impact on teenagers, exploited at a speed never seen before. Dr. Mohammed Qasim of the London School of Economics said gangs are exploiting under 20s at a speed never seen before. Do you think that's the case, George? Do you think exploitation amongst young people has increased in lockdown, or is it more of just attention has been drawn to it because there's been an increase in police arrests because there's nothing else to do?
Yeah, it's difficult to know, isn't it? I'm not in the details, but it's troubling if true. Obviously, there's a lot of conflated things going on in that story, I think, and you know, the whole county lines thing is very different from the cannabis black market supply chain and its impact on people. But there was a lot of exploitation of young people in both drug markets all through my youth and beyond, you know, whether it's crack cocaine and heroin or the cannabis market, definitely still relies on a lot of underage labour. Whether people, you know, go in willingly or not, they don't really have the wherewithal to be making those kind of decisions.
How do you think the markets differ? Because I find this interesting. Like, what do you, when you talk about county lines in the cannabis market and heroin market, we did bits of research on this, but for people that aren't sure, what do you think is different?
They have different supply chains driven by different organised crime groups targeting different markets and demographics, and as a result, the crack cocaine and heroin market is dominated by gangs that can be quite violent when rivaled, and there's a lot, and the whole county lines exploitation of teenage people to move their products around from their bases in major cities is how it's all done, whereas the cannabis supply chain is considerably less violent, and it is much more complex, you know, in terms of small production and importation from lots of different sources, and it doesn't involve quite so much child exploitation. Not to say that it doesn't involve child exploitation, because it does in certain places.
Yeah, definitely. We did with Neurosite and Drugs and Me. We did a survey that spoke to students and young people about their use of drugs during lockdown, and the bit that really jumped out for me and caused, I don't know, I find super concerning, was the increase in benzodiazepine use amongst student populations.
Yeah.
So like from, you know, both you and I, George, have been students and are familiar with those sort of like patterns of use that students get into, but I always found benzodiazepines a bit more of a niche, on the sort of a niche drug. I know their popularity is increased alongside stimulants among student populations, and many young people will use depressant type drugs like Xanax, Valium, you know, a whole range of drugs in the benzodiazepine family to help manage a come down. But then me and you both know how dangerous that is. You know, like stimulants followed by depressants is a pretty risky combination. So that's dodgy in itself. But we saw from this survey an increase in benzodiazepine use just used to generally pass the time and deal with boredom and stress and worry and anxiety. And I found that quite surprising, because from working with students and being a student, it was not really a trending thing. Do you know what I mean? I just, you didn't really see many students using benzos.
But then you see a lot of prisoners using benzos, or craving benzos at least, to kill the bird, to pass the time. And, you know, people, when they're locked down, often do turn to those kind of drugs, in my experience.
Yeah.
Prison work and elsewhere.
So the main story for me in that really around that isolation thing is we need to do more to educate students on the risks of taking those drugs, because you're right, those drugs, well, it's like anything, isn't it? The heroin use is popular amongst populations of people who are deeply sad, have experienced trauma, are deeply unwell and need to kill emotional pain. Benzodiazepines popular amongst cohorts of people that want to kill time.
Benzos can be fatal so easily. It is
big time.
Sad.
Yeah, really fatal. And physically, that alcohol and benzodiazepines, really dangerous drugs to physically withdraw from. Yet we don't do enough to spread messages amongst populations about what those withdrawals look like and how people experience them. So yeah, major problem. As is people just taking like Coke and Xanax.
Yeah.
People just don't realise the impact of those two drugs. You go on Reddit forums and people are like, yeah, I love taking half a bar of Xanax before my first line. And you're like, stay safe, guys. Don't read Reddit for your drugs advice. Go on www.drugsand.me. Next story. This one caused a bit of a stir yesterday. UK halts CBD imports as it enforces strict rules on trace THC levels. The Home Office put a stop to bulk CBD imports over concerns of it containing illegal levels of THC. The Home Office now requires all businesses which import bulk CBD isolates to secure a Schedule 1 controlled drug license. This is pretty concerning for the industry, right? Because nearly all the CBD is imported.
All of it that is legally sold is imported,
This story came out yesterday. I've not seen loads of people talking about this, actually. I've not seen that much of a splash about it. I expected more of a response. Do you think people are just kind of trying to work out how
it's not like a big story, is it? It's quite a niche trade story, but I think it's got quite, big ramifications. And because the reality is, like, too much THC, by that they basically mean any THC, which is a controlled substance. So it shifts, because CBD products are just sold in like health and food products, and people expect to be able to do business like any sort of FMCG business would. And then if you're talking about Schedule 1 imports, you're talking about pharmaceutical supply chains, much more expensive, the whole thing. Much more tightly controlled trade by the few licensed people. But, this is part of the problem where people have been told time and time again that, there shouldn't be any THC, because CBD, the position is clear. CBD is basically fine, and THC is not. So, it needs to,
needs to change. I guess the Home Office, I don't know, see, like you say, it's not major news, but it does, at a time where the CBD market was looking, certainly has big economic potential to it and quite a bit of diversity, it seems to be quite a negative, it seems to be a step backwards. Last up, I got
those resoundingly interesting comments.
Thanks for your analysis there, John. UK vaporizer maker to be the first medical cannabis firm listed in London. Israeli founded firm Kanabo that makes vaporizers is on course to become the first medical cannabis company to float on the London Stock Exchange next month. It'll be the 16th of February. They've got their sights are set on the UK after securing $6 million from investors, valuing the company at 23.2 mil. They're an Israeli firm but was bought by the UK-based shell company Spinnaker in 2019. This has been a long time coming, right? This is a really long road for Spinnaker. Well, the start of something exciting for Spinnaker, but the end of a long road in terms of trying to secure it, and feels like quite a significant milestone because there's been lots of fears around proceeds of crime, and the Financial Conduct Authority have made multiple statements and said all sorts of stuff. So this feels like quite a landmark.
It is. Congratulations to everyone involved. It's a good progress seeing cannabis businesses listed in London. But it hasn't resolved a lot of those issues that you mentioned earlier around proceeds of crime. This is, a very compliance-friendly business, whereas, a lot of other businesses are still going to encounter a lot of problems if they want to list in London. Yeah. So there's a lot of change that could happen that would be great. But progressed on the same, and there are MGC Pharma are hoping to list very shortly. They're another company similar situation, saying that they're very very close to being listed, which is cool. And I think we did an event. We're doing a campaign at the moment called New Leaf Opportunities, which is talking about innovation and economic benefits of reform of medical cannabis and CBD, and I think it sends a good signal just to policymakers, politicians, and the media that medical cannabis is a growing industry. It's got a future. I guess the GW story further emphasises that medical cannabis in the UK is a serious industry, and I think the optics of that. You said it's a serious industry, and you used the growing pun unwittingly.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
All the time.
Growing industry, the ultimate cliche.
Sorry, it is very cliche, and I didn't even mean it, George. But yeah, it's good. Well done to Kanabo.
Yeah,
that's our stories, George. That's what we got. That's all we got. Big news at the end. Big news at the beginning. It's a show of big nose. Big news. It's a show of big nose.
Your favourite big nose show.
Welcome to All Big Noses with Paul and George. That's it for this week. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment, and we'll see you next time.